We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. The Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners. We're at Truckee Meadows Community College on Friday, May 15th. Suzanne, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Chairman Drew.
Here.
Vice Chairman Wallace.
Here.
Commissioner Bliss.
Here.
Commissioner Johnston.
Here.
Commissioner Lane. Here. Commissioner McMinch.
Here.
Commissioner Mora.
Here.
Commissioner Valentine.
Here.
And Commissioner Young.
Here. County Advisory Boards, if you could please stand and let us know who you're representing today.
Paul Dixon, Clark. Gil Yonner, Carson.
Yeah, if that's okay.
Tom Casanelli, Humboldt.
Corey Lytle, Lincoln.
Vern Winder, Elko.
Jay Washoe. Justin Rosich, White Pine.
Joe Grimm, Turkey. Mitch Burns, Lion.
Thank you all. And then let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Morite, could you lead us today?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, we'll move to a fun event, and I will turn it over to Secretary Wasley for employee appreciation. Tony?
Thank you, Chairman Drew. The first week of May, some time ago, was designated as Public Service Employees Recognition Week. And in conjunction with that, the governor has encouraged, in the state of Nevada, the governor has encouraged us to show some appreciation, recognize some of our employees. We pass the hat amongst the leadership team. We host some employee appreciation events around the state. And in conjunction with that, we recognize some of our employees who have hit significant tenure marks in their careers. Typically, the department provides certificates on 5-year intervals. I wanted to kind of take advantage of this opportunity to call out a couple employees that are here today participating in this process. Kathy, are you down south? Kathy Telegatis?
Yes, Director. I'm right here.
Okay, sorry to surprise you, but Kathy will have 20 years with the department this year. I wanted to call her out. Also with us today is Habitat Division Administrator Alan Janae, who will also have his 20-year anniversary with the department this year. Alan started in May of 1990 as a conservation aide. Left for a short time, was seasonal for a couple years, left for a short time with the Department of Transportation, has been in Fisheries Division, Habitat Division, Winnemucca, Elko, and now in Reno. Also want to recognize Alan for 20 years service. One employee who isn't here that I wanted to call out is Chris Hampson. Chris is a Western Region game biologist, and he'll have 30 years this year. Gave Chris the option to come today, but he was satisfied with the recognition that we provided him at our employee recognition event. Also with 30 years this year is Joanne Trendler. I don't know if she was planning on being here. I don't see her here, so we do have a plaque for her. Mike Podborny is a game biologist in Eureka. He'll have 30 years this year also. And then we have Father Time, as he's known around the office, John Schoberg, who is here today. And we have a plaque for him. John was looking at 35 years. Started as a public service intern as a seasonal hire in Elko on a fawn mortality study in 1974. So we currently have about 50% of the agency that has less than 10 years with the agency. And when we had our in-house event recognizing John for 35 years, I asked how many of you were born after 1974, and the show of hands was pretty impressive. John said, "Thanks, that makes me feel really good." So I could go through John's history, but he's worked in all three regions, from the fawn mortality study to fisheries management division. He's been recognized throughout the country for his work on native fishes, fostered some great partnerships with the Fish and Wildlife Service and fish conservation. Really, as I've traveled around the last couple of years and met people in the Fish and Wildlife Service, a number of them have said, "Oh, do you know John Schoberg, or John Schoberg works for you?" And the praise and regard with which he's held makes me proud, and John should be proud as well. So I'd like to recognize John with this plaque for 35 years of dedicated service to the wildlife resources of the state of Nevada. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Before we close out of that agenda item, I would just like to extend my appreciation for the folks that were recognized today and all the staff for all you do for this commission and this process. I know it's a lot of work, and a lot of times it goes unnoticed, but it doesn't go unnoticed by myself or I think anyone sitting at this table. So appreciation to everyone in the audience and all staff. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda for possible action. The commission will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. The only thing that I would say is on agenda item 9, legislative update or possible action. I would like us to consider either moving that to the end of the day today or taking that item at the call of the chair. We're dealing with some real-time changes in the legislature as we speak. And there's at least one bill that has some pretty critical components that I think this commission is going to want to weigh in on. And so we're waiting for some updates. But that's the only thing that I can see on the agenda. Any commission comments on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, public comment on agenda item number 2 in Reno. Seeing none, Las Vegas.
No comment, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Elko.
No.
No comment, Chairman.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the agenda as presented with the exception of number 9 being available at the call of the chair.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the table. Are there any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3, member items, announcements, and correspondence. This is an informational item. Commissioners may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on future commission agenda. The commission will review and may discuss correspondence sent or received by the commission since the last regular meeting and may provide copies for the exhibit file. Any commission items today? Commissioner Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On April 14th, I received a copy of a letter from an attorney in Elko named Julie Kavanaugh Bill that was sent to Deputy Attorney General Harry Ward. I received a copy of that. In the letter, Ms. Kavanaugh states that she represents Mr. Fred Boltz and Mr. Don Moldy. And the letter was in reference to the action that this commission took in response to the petition filed by Mr. Boltz and Mr. Moldy to ban coyote killing contests. And after reviewing it, if it's appropriate, I'd like to respond to the letter. There were some serious allegations made against me. I didn't want to respond outside of a public setting, but I did want to respond to it, and I thought this might be the appropriate time to do that, if that's okay.
I'm fine with that. Mr. Ward, any concern?
It depends. Why is the answer? For the record, Harry Ward, Deputy Attorney, but I see no problem letting the commission give its concerns.
Mr. Johnston, you may proceed.
Thank you. The essence of the letter was that this commission denied the petition on a technical or procedural ground, and that was improper. In fact, I think Ms. Kavanaugh stated that the denial of the petition on a technical ground was fatally flawed and illogical, and then noted that that terminology was borrowed from me as I was quoted in the Reno Gazette Journal. As I go through the letter, I find it disheartening that I'm receiving a letter based upon 4 words that appeared in a Reno Gazette Journal article rather than the actual video of what transpired at the meeting and all of the comments that I made at the meeting. It's apparent from reading this letter that the attorney did not take the time to review the meeting or the comments that were made by everyone on the commission, not just me. Nor does it appear that the attorney took the time to actually look at the motion that was made and that was passed by this commission in response to the petition. There are allegations that I somehow overstepped my bounds and acted as a legal advisor to the commission. I deny that. I reviewed this petition on the merits and the proper context of the role of this commission and what the petition presented. I wasn't giving legal advice, but simply analyzing the petition. There was an allegation that my conduct could have caused attendees unnecessary concerns and doubt about the value of their effort to attend the meeting. That allegation is belied by the specific comments that I made and the due consideration I gave to all the public comments that were made during the hearing, and I made that clear on the record. There was the notion that this was a simple process and any inconsistencies in the petition could have been worked out through the rulemaking process. I don't believe Ms. Kavanaugh really understood then what the petition meant. Had we accepted the petition, it's my understanding that then we would have had a draft regulation to ban coyote killing contests. And it was my position that we did not need to go down that process because such a regulation was not needed. So, you know, what the letter ended up saying was that the petitioner would like simply to have their petition heard with an up or down vote on the merits. And that is precisely what the petitioners received at the hearing. It was denied on the merits, motion that I made, and that was passed, I believe, in a 7-to-1 vote. It was denied on the merits because the petition was not needed for the management of wildlife in this state. It's just very disconcerting that I received this, and I suspect that had we just did a vote to deny the petition without any explanation or analysis, we would have got a letter that said they deserved a response or an explanation. So in any event, I wanted to respond to that. I believe we were faithful to the process. We evaluated the petition on the merits. We denied it on the merits. We gave the petitioners what they asked for in a fair process that due consideration was given to all public input. And I just note for the record that after the vote was taken, Ms. Fauna Tomlinson from Project Coyote came and approached me after the petition was denied, and she said, "Commissioner Johnson, you were right. Given the context of where you were at in Nevada, legislation, what was being proposed, she told me I was right." So I just wanted to respond to this letter, given the fact that there was allegations that I had overstepped my bounds as a commissioner or somehow denied the petitioners a fair hearing. I take those allegations very seriously, and I dispute them, and I believe the record, as it stands at the actual meeting and the minutes and the motion that was passed, is reflective of the appropriate action that was taken. Petitioners may not like the action that we took. They may be disappointed that the petition was denied, but that disappointment does not justify allegations being made against me or any other commissioner to the tune that they somehow didn't get a fair hearing or an opportunity to present their case, because that was afforded to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional commission items, correspondence? Director Wasley, anything correspondence-wise?
No, sir.
Okay. I was in receipt of the same letter. I don't think any further comment is needed on that. I will have at least one other item that will be on tomorrow's agenda. But unless there's other correspondence or items from the commission, I'm going to move off. Okay, seeing none, we close agenda item 3 and move to agenda item number 4, County Advisory Boards to manage wildlife member items. Again, informational. County Advisory Board members may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action will be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Any County Advisory Board members with items, come on up.
For the record, Giliana Carson, Advisory Board. The board would like to thank the department for all their help and support at the recent Kids Fishing Derby held at Bailey Pond. You guys were out in full force. I mean, you had people, you had the fans, you had guys giving out stuff, helping the kids get their lines set up, and it was just wonderful. And wherever you turn around, people from the department were helping little kids, and they just had a great time. When you see a little kid with this pole bent completely over catching a 2.5-pound trout that you guys put in there, it was something to really just make you feel good all about getting all these kids interested in fishing. On another note, putting on my Chairman Finance Committee hat, if anybody hasn't submitted their budget, any of the camps have not submitted their budget and need some help, I'll stick around during the lunch break and help anybody that needs anything, but hopefully everybody's submitted it. We tried to make it as easy as possible this year, and hopefully everybody felt the same way about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. Come on up, Paul.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County Advisory Board. I wanted to give a little kind of a shout out up here to one of our NGOs in the state, a new one, which is Nevada Sportsmen's Unlimited. In our CAB meeting the other night, we had Dr. Lane sent me some information about issues with fishing line and leftover hooks in our urban ponds in Clark County, and animals being harmed, wild ducks and wild birds. And she actually had a lady, and I can't pronounce her name, Dr. Anula, come and actually testify on what's been going on. They have a group of people, citizens around the urban pond at Sunset that are trying to help mitigate things, but they're running into issues. And after a fairly long discussion and going over all the things that are happening, Nevada Sportsmen's Unlimited, Ryan Werner and his wife stepped in and said, look, don't take this to the commission as an issue or the Department of Wildlife. Let us step in as an NGO, have our kids get out there, work and educate people and talk to them, and then see in 2 months whether or not the problem is mitigated or goes away greatly. And if it does, then you don't have an action to take up to the commission. And I think when you look at NGOs and the things that they do, that's for that organization, their kids, and teaching them to get out and educate people is a really big thing, and I wanted to give them credit for that. Thank you.
Paul? Additional county advisory items? I don't believe there's any in Elko or Las Vegas. I think you guys are here. Right. Seeing none, I'll move off of agenda item number 4. Move to agenda item number 5. Approval of minutes for possible action. The commission may take action to approve meeting minutes from the March 20 and 21st, 2015 commission meeting. Any commission comments or discussion on the minutes as presented? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since I wasn't here for the March meeting, I'll be abstaining from that.
Fair enough. We'll let you up there. Additional comment? Commissioner Johnson?
Just clarification, I think I received an initial draft of the minutes and then a revised draft. I just want to make sure it's the revised draft that's now under consideration. Is that right?
Suzanne, can you clarify that? I believe it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Additional question or comment? Commissioner Lane?
I was only here for 1 day, so I'm also going to abstain from voting on the minutes.
Anything else? Okay, this is Commissioner Bliss.
I was also just here 1 day.
Oh, here we're still at 6. Fair enough. All right. Anything else? All right. This is an action item. Any public comment on the minutes in Reno? Seeing none, Las Vegas?
Yes, Chairman, we have comments.
Mr. Chair, Commission, Jana Wright for the record. On page 22 of the minutes, the 2 sentences contributed to me are incorrect. The last word should be SJR 11, not SJR 1, in reference to Senate Bill 163. If you would make that correction, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Additional public comment in Las Vegas?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Elko, public comment on the minutes?
No comment in Elko.
All right. I'll bring it back to the commission. Any further discussion or question? Not, I would entertain a motion and ask that Ms. Wright's correction be included in that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the minutes as presented with the change on page 22 that Ms. Wright's comments reflect SJR 11 rather than SJR 1.
Second. Okay, got a motion and a second. Suzanne, you're clear with the edit there?
Yes.
Any discussion or question on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0 with 3 abstentions, McNaich, Lane, and Bliss. With that, we will move to action item number 6, Commission General Regulation 456 LCB file number T004-15, Elk Arbitration Panel, proposed changes to NAC 502.42283, Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeman for possible action. Commission will hear a temporary regulation concerning amending NAC 502.42283 by which the Commission may facilitate decisions by appointing or serving as an arbitration panel should arbitration of elk incentive tag awards become necessary. The Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners conducted a workshop on March 20th, 2015, and the Commission approved the regulation as presented to move forward to take action at this meeting. Mr. Wakeman.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Wakeman, Game Division Administrator, Nevada Department of Wildlife. You have a regulation, a proposed regulation in front of you. It has the markup changes on there. Essentially, in addition to having heard this one time in March where we workshopped it, you'd also have been provided with some of the background information on this in discussion on this same item at 3 separate commission meetings over the course of the last year. This is a temporary regulation, and so even if the commission chooses to adopt it, you'll get to hear it again. We don't want you to get run out of agenda items. So anyhow, what this proposes to do is largely alter the arbitration process through rule. Currently, the way the rule is structured, the arbitration panel is chosen from a local committee. This has proven to be problematic, and for a number of reasons, a lot of it dealing with a lot of the challenges with local communities. And so the proposal before you today would have that the arbitration panel either be included as a panel that the commission or a committee that the commission would appoint that could be comprised of commissioners and or CAB members, or the commission itself can choose to serve as that panel. The panel itself is not really well articulated in this particular NAC, but it also kind of bleeds into the process that has been developed, and you will address it in the next commission agenda item.
Questions of Mr. Wakeling? Any other discussion on the item before I take it out to public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll open it up. Any county advisory board comment on this one? Coming up, Paul. And again, on county advisory board, please, just the folks that are representing your county for this segment. If you want to talk as an individual, I'll call it public comment after counties.
Paul Dixon, representing Clark Cap. One of the discussion points, I don't know if it comes up on this agenda item or the next one, and it really doesn't matter, but the composition of the arbitration board. One of the reasons that we wanted to pull it back up to the commission level was we had a lot of trouble, one, getting people to serve on the board, and then two, once we got people to serve on the board locally, we were having local conflict of interest issues or people being ostracized locally or being picked on because they were doing things. It was causing friction. And so the comment was made by the Clark County Advisory Board, and the CAB supported, is that the arbitration board should probably just be composed of commissioners and not bring in county advisory board members or others, but keep it elevated at the commission level and just have commissioners participate on that board since it's a small board, and not involve others where you may end up in conflict of interest or have people that get feel that they're being pressured to vote or be a certain way because of where they live or who they live nearby or are friends with. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, Gil. Or are you just getting out of the way?
He's just getting out of my...
I'm glad you stopped that sentence short.
I did.
Additional county advisory board inputs? Seeing none, public comment, Reno? agenda item 6? Seeing none, public comment in Las Vegas on agenda item 6?
Thank you, Chairman. No comment.
Elko, any public comment on agenda item number 6?
No comment, Chairman.
With that, I'll bring it back to the commission. I guess just to respond to Mr. Dixon's comments, I understand where he's coming from. I think this provides us a little bit of flexibility. I think at least I would envision starting off with the commission to begin with, but down the road it might be better to appoint a sub-panel or something so to see how it plays out. I kind of am personally in favor of having that flexibility anyway. Additional commission comments, questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Not all at once.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we adopt CGR 456 LCD file number T004-15 as presented by the.
We've got a motion and a second to approve Commission and General Regulation 456 as presented. Are there any questions on the motion or further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll close agenda item number 6, move to agenda item number 7. Draft process for use by the Commission in arbitration as described in the previous NAC. Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeling for possible action. The Commission will review a proposed process for arbitration as described in the proposed NAC. Arbitration panel that will outline the responsibilities of the department and the landowner applicant when contesting issues associated with award of special incentive tags, health tags, the establishment of a subcommittee to hear the contest, timelines associated with the contest and decision, and recommendations to the Commission as decision-making arbitration panel. The Commission may provide the department with direction on further revisions or approve the draft process pending adoption of temporary regulation CGR 456, which was just approved in the previous agenda item. Mr. Wakeling.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Brian Wakeling, Game Division Chief, Nevada Department of Wildlife. The arbitration process that you have before you largely implements the rule that was just approved. This provides some detail to the proposed process, indicates how we will provide notification through the oath application for the process. This also defines the panel, which could be chosen by the Commission, comprised of the Commission and or members of CAB. It also could allow for the Commission to serve as the arbitration panel itself. This incorporates changes that were directed by the Commission at the last opportunity to review this back in March. Input was provided as directed by the Commission by both Commissioners Johnson and Chairman Drew, and we have incorporated those. I would mention that we do have a pending arbitration case that has been affirmed for the June meeting, and if adopted, the Commission is likely to need to serve as that arbitration panel for this year.
Questions, Mr. Wakeling? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Brian, under 5A, just clarification is all that. If the chairman chooses to have the committee serve as the arbitration panel, the committee will be composed of a sportsman representative, a livestock or agricultural representative, and a conservation or public representative from the commission or a CAB member. So are we talking a conservation or public representative from the CAB or any CAB member?
My understanding, and this may not be worded as specifically as what the Commission may choose, but my understanding was that the CAB member could serve in any of those roles. If there's some, if the Commission's discretion, we can be more precise in the wording. I may have misinterpreted the intent, so we can certainly craft that. This Because it's an internal process, there's no timelines for filing or anything of that nature. Commission chooses to amend something today, we can certainly amend it, it will be effective.
And I would just, I think, in my memory, and please don't hold me to that, but I think the intent there was for any cab member, so if we want to replace or a cab member with or any cab member, I think that might clarify. I think that was the intent. Other questions? Seeing none, any discussion before I take it out for comment? Okay, County Advisory Board comment on item number 7. Seeing none, is there public comment on item number 7 in Reno? Las Vegas?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have comment.
Chair Jana Wright for the record. On item number 5, I'm requesting to build on what Chairman Dixon of the Clark County CAB said, that the wording would read, the chairman of the commission may choose to have a committee of commissioners, and then delete and county advisory board to manage wildlife members. And then to serve as the arbitration panel or choose to have the commission serve as the arbitration panel. And on 5A, line 4, I'm requesting that you delete or any CAB member. The reasons being that this was brought forward, if I remember correctly, because it was difficult for the department to find people to serve on this arbitration panel because they felt pitted neighbor against neighbor and it was a no-win situation for them. I think the commission or a committee of the commissioners is the best way to move forward with the arbitration panel. Thank you for taking that under consideration.
Thank you. Additional public comment, Las Vegas?
No more comment. Thank you.
Comment in Elko on item number 7?
No comment in Elko.
I'll bring it back to the commission, and I understand, I guess, the concern there. Again, to me, it's flexibility. In some cases, it might actually provide some benefit to have a CAB member. It is an or, and it's one member at the most, and so I'm comfortable with it, and I think we've had this discussion in the past, so it's a good point, well taken. It's been discussed by this board, and again, personal opinion is it provides us some flexibility. But other discussion or commission items? Commissioner Johnston?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just follow on the comment. I think one of the concerns with the prior process that all of the arbitration panel would be local. This gives the flexibility that if you have an arbitration process arising out of White Pine or Lincoln County, the CAB member could be from Elko or Humboldt or another county. So I don't think I think that concern has been addressed, and this just gives us the flexibility. So I appreciate Clark County's comments and Ms. Wright's comments, and we're cognizant of that. I think this does help address those specific issues and gives the commission the shared flexibility in that regard, comprising a committee if the committee is created.
Additional board comments or questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the arbitration process for applicants dissatisfied with the incentive tax award as presented, with the small change as noted in paragraph 5A that A, CAB, MW member be any rather than A.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the arbitration process before us today with the one small change. Are there any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Wakeling will close item number 7 and move to item number 8, which is a request from the Coville Confederated Tribes in Washington for up to 50 pronghorn antelope during winter 2015-16, presented by Wildlife Staff Specialist Mike Cox. This is for possible action. The Commission may consider and act on a request by the Coville Confederated Tribes in Washington regarding a request to capture and translocate up to 50 pronghorn antelope from Nevada to tribal lands in Washington. Mr. Cox.
Good morning, Mike Cox, beginning staff biologist. We have provided pronghorn for the Yakima tribe about 3 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And we had interest from the Colville Confederated Tribes a couple years ago. And we have been in discussions with them for well over 2 years almost. And we really feel that they've done their due diligence to provide us the information that we've requested, both from myself and from our regional perspective. And here today is both Eric Kraus and Rich Whitney from the Colville Tribal Department of Wildlife Program. And Eric's going to give a presentation on their lands that they have for reintroduction of pronghorn, the program, and hopefully answer any questions you have.
Okay, before we do that, and what I'll do is have the commission flip around so they can see the screen, and I'm not playing shadow puppets. But I had asked Mike, when this came onto the agenda, and I think some of the county advisory boards had asked the same question, why it was on this agenda and why we weren't doing it as part of the biennial release plan, which I think eventually, if we approve it, would be incorporated. And I think it was to give the tribe an opportunity to be here today. And I really appreciate them, making the effort to come down and be here to present that. There were a few questions that came up in terms of source stock, who's paying for the trap transplant. So some of those questions may be answered, but just so folks know that that question had come up, and that's why we're doing it, so these folks could be here today and present their case.
Right, we'll get into potential opportunities for source stock, but I do want to clarify that our biennial big game release plan is only approval of releases within the state, and through NAC it does require us to come before you, the Board of Wildlife Commissioners, to get approval for any animals that were to be translocated from Nevada elsewhere. And this would occur next winter, December 15 or January, February 16.
Okay. Appreciate the clarification. We'll flip around and let you gentlemen present, and then we'll have the commission come back up and ask any questions.
Will you do the, or, oh.
When you're ready.
Okay, first of all, Wahai Kwikwas, good morning. Thank you, Commissioners, for giving us the chance to come here and talk to you today about our proposed pronghorn reintroduction on the Colville Reservation. And got a short presentation here that'll kind of talk to you a little bit about our history of the tribes briefly, and some of the lands we have, and then of course the proposed project. So Colville Tribes Fish and Wildlife mission statement is to maintain and protect viable populations, numbers and distribution of reproductive individuals of native and desired non-native species of fish and wildlife, and their supporting habitats, while providing sufficient numbers to meet cultural, subsistence, recreational, and the economic needs of the tribal membership. So a couple of our wildlife goals that pertain to the specific project were identified here as well. Provide for subsistence and cultural use of wildlife by tribal members, while maintaining healthy, self-sustaining game and non-game populations on the reservation, and ensuring wildlife populations are maintained within the tribes seated in usual and customary areas to meet the cultural and subsistent needs of the tribal membership. And I just want to clarify that the Colville Tribes is truly a subsistence culture dependent on harvesting of elk, deer, moose, of big game to support their families. So, adding another species like pronghorn that were historically there is a big part of the tribe's goals. So a little bit about the reservation. The Colville Indian Reservation was established by executive order in 1872 And originally it was twice as large as it is today, which is, you can see the outline there where the red line goes down, shows you the reservation boundary. It's bordered by the Columbia River to the, that's the dark line that runs from the Canadian border to the eastern boundary of the reservation, then runs on the southern portion of the reservation, and then the Okanagan River is the boundary to the west. And the original reservation size actually, if you were to draw a line up on the northwest corner towards Canada, it used to go all the way up to Canada. So the current reservation boundary or acreage is 1.4 million acres, so it's really a good size area. It's kind of the part of the state where we transition out of mixed conifer forest into more shrub steppe habitat, sagebrush habitat. So this is this is a map showing Washington State and the usual and custom areas or traditional territories of the 12 tribes that were placed on the Colville Reservation. That's one of the unique things about the Colville Reservation. It's actually 12 different tribes that were all placed on one reservation. So their traditional territories actually were quite a large area up into Canada, down into Oregon and part of Idaho. And that's another point on that is that about 7 of the 12 tribes actually had pronghorn antelope, as a part of their culture in their traditional territory that they came from. So not only is bringing pronghorn back to the reservation a big part, are important to us because we add a game species, but it's also bringing back a species that was traditionally part of a culture of 12 or 7 of the 12 tribes. So there's another important aspect of this project to us. As you can see, it's fairly well spread out. So the original 12 tribes areas were quite geographically diverse across the landscape. Some were more prairie associated tribes, whereas others were well into the Rocky Mountains, foothills of the Rocky Mountains. And as I mentioned before, a couple of tribes is definitely a subsistence culture. So this is a history kind of showing where pronghorn were or where they had occurred in Washington, where there had been digs and remains found. So all the empty boxes showed where there were actual samples taken, and then all the black boxes show where pronghorn remains were identified within the portion of Washington State. And so you can see where the reservation boundary is in red there, and there were historically pronghorn antelope occurring within the bounds of the reservation. So kind of what led to the demise, combination of things, as western expansion continued on, there was overhunting, dams were developed that created exclusion of corridors that had been there for thousands of years. So as water, the dams were put in, as the waters rose, it became harder for these species to cross from Oregon into Washington. And so the ability for pronghorn to refill a niche they once had was basically eliminated. And then, of course, agricultural and ranching, with the dams that went in water, irrigation, and then much of the Columbia Plateau turned into farmland. So habitat was lost as well. And so by 1900, they were extirpated from Washington State. So once we had identified that pronghorn historically had occurred, within the boundaries of the current reservation, we began an antelope reintroduction feasibility study. I was a biologist that no longer works for us, began the study in 2004. And he ran a habitat suitability model for a couple areas that were kind of identified as key areas that we thought we could do reintroduction into. And he came up with values of 0.72 and 0.63 respectively for this Tumwater and White Lakes mitigation units. And there'll be another map that'll kind of show those a little better. And the 0.72 and 0.63 is out of one, so those are good numbers. And that model was based off of water, forage, space, and train. That was actually the U.S. Fish and Wildlife pronghorn habitat suitability model that was used. So some of the research we did into history and archaeology for the tribe came up with some interesting information. So antelope were hunted only during the summer and fall. Historically, they roamed in considerable numbers about the prairies south of Columbia River, especially in the vicinity of Grand Coulee, which is a city that's on the reservation on the kind of southwestern edge. Seal hunting was the preferred method employed for antelope. It was not unusual for a clever huntsman to kill 2 or 3 antelope in a single day. The tribes of the region historically used the species for subsistence in addition to salmon and other natural sources, and antelope bones show up in many of the digs down the reservation along the Columbia River. So those are all, again, kind of historical data backing up the need to return antelope to the reservation. So this is a little bit of a timeline on kind of how this stuff all started. Like I had mentioned, we did the habitat suitability modeling and feasibility study in 2004, identified that it was a possibility to bring back pronghorn and that we had available habitat. We began looking at available source populations in about 2008. I kind of started talking to different biologists that I had met in conferences. Talked to a couple from Utah. I had met Mike at a conference, discussed the possibility of something like this happening. We had spoke with Oregon, and kind of after talking to different places, we felt like that Nevada was the best fit. Some of these other populations had pretty severe seasonal movements. We didn't want to take animals that were having large migrations and put them into an area and then expect them to stay. So that was one of the considerations we had. And so, like I said, Nevada kind of became the best fit for us. So then we proposed this project and discussed with our tribal council, and in July of this past year, we got full approval from tribal council to go ahead and engage you guys in conversation. So that's when we began talks with Mike in July this summer. And we, at the same time, we were running through our tribal NEPA process and getting approval and compliance there, and that was done by October. And then tribal council, like I mentioned, unanimously approved the proposal and created resolution 2014-740 approving to go forward with the project. So this is another map kind of showing the outline of these areas. These areas were acquired by the wildlife program as mitigation for the damming of Columbia River above Chief Joseph and Grand Coulee dams. And what's unique about this is we actually have the ability to exclude livestock from these areas and manage as we see fit, whether it's by burning or planting desirable species. And so this area that we chose to do the pronghorn release, we felt, one, it was habitat that was a good fit for pronghorn, but also we had these areas that were completely managed by us, and we had the sole jurisdiction on them, so we could make improvements that would benefit pronghorn in the best possible manner. So some of the things that we've already been doing to prepare is removed a ton of fence in the area, fences that do remain surrounding the properties. To exclude livestock, we're putting smooth wire. When we raised the bottom wire, so pronghorn can easily move through. And then as well, we've done some plantings of desirable species for pronghorn. There is quite a bit of habitat available to these guys up here, and you can see the Columbia River is that border to the south there, and then that black line to the west is the Okanagan River, which runs all the way to Canada. This is just a couple pictures just to kind of give you an idea what the ground looks like. It's actually what we call the Tumwater unit, and that's bordered by the Columbia River to the south. So you can see that the two primary units we're looking at here are what we call the White Lakes unit, and which is the upper one, and the Tumwater Basin unit. And again, those are owned by Wildlife Mitigation. And these are a couple pictures of those representative areas. The bottom one shows that Columbia River bordering the Tumwater unit. And then the upper picture is White Lakes. So some of the other part of this is, you know, we knew we wanted to have discussions with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife regarding this because we're bringing a species back into the state within our boundaries, but also within the state of Washington. So we've been in talks with Washington for a couple of years about this. I think the first time I attended a meeting discussing this was when the Yakimas were first talking about doing these reintroductions. So we've been involved in talking with the state from the very first reintroduction with the Yakima Reservation. But we informed WDFW of our intentions in September this past year. In January, we had some regional wildlife biologist meetings discussing our upcoming plans, and that was with biologists from a number of different agencies, state agencies, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, Forest Service, Department of Natural Resources. So we wanted everyone to kind of, be on board and know what we were planning to do and not be blindsided. And then we had an annual coordination meeting in February of 2012 this year. And then we had pronghorn coordination calls with WDFW, and those kind of been ongoing to keep them aware of where we're at in the process and how things are going, so they know when we're actually going to be moving forward. So a couple of strategies. We felt like it was really important that we put a GPS collar on every individual. We've done reintroductions with bighorn sheep on the reservation, and with some of the stuff we had heard, feedback we had gotten on the Yakima's reintroduction, we felt like if we're bringing back pronghorn into the state of Washington, we should try to learn as much as we can about the success and failures of that and the areas that they're choosing to make their habitat on the reservation, so that we can every time we do this, we can be better at it. Or if other parts of the state try to do the same thing, that they can learn from our releases. So we are GPS collaring every individual and ear tagging, and then also we'll be doing disease testing as well. That was another reason that we thought it was necessary to do the GPS collaring. We wanted to have support from agricultural community, and we didn't want there to be concerns about brucellosis or any kind of disease transmission. So we felt like if we did the disease testing, had collars on animals, if there was an individual that was identified, we could go to the individual easily by the use of the collar. So we're planning on doing a soft release. Currently, that's what we're planning on doing. So they'd be kept in like a corral for a period of time to get them kind of acclimated to their area rather than just a shotgun blast out onto the landscape. Our determining, our population objectives or population goals, that's a little bit open at the moment. Some of this, depends on the success of the reintroduction, how much mortality we have, the habitat they choose to inhabit, and then how much growth we're actually seeing over time. We feel like there's other areas on the reservation that would be suitable for pronghorn as well. And so we haven't really set ourselves an upper end of where we want to see population numbers at the moment. We're just trying to get them established and then go from there. So kind of as I mentioned earlier, what we want to see out of this is bringing back a species that was once historically present in both the traditional territories of the Colville tribes and on the reservation itself. We want to bring back this species for subsistence harvest by the tribal members. We hope that what we do and how this project goes will help other people learn from it and hopefully help pronghorn reestablish within Washington State and in the Columbia Basin in the long run. So, Lem, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Field any questions you guys have this time.
Chairman,
Ms. Lang?
I do have a question that I'd like to, a couple of questions I'd like to ask. if that's okay.
Yep.
You indicated that you've done bighorn sheep release, is that correct? That you've done this prior with other species?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
can you talk, I would be curious about the results of those releases and also what natural predators are already there and existing in terms of the release that you're going to do right now. But I'd be interested in the releases that you've done prior to this.
Yeah. In about 2008, we began doing reintroduction of the California bighorn sheep onto the Colorado Reservation. We had an existing population, which was actually in Omak Lake, that had been there since about the 80s, but had been kind of stagnant. We wanted to get that population, on its feet, but we felt like we needed to do some disease testing, some genetic work on that population. So in the meantime, the plan we came up with is we'd identified historical habitat within our. We have two game reserves on the Colorado Reservation: the Omak Lake Game Reserve and the Hell's Gate Game Reserve. So we identified bighorn habitat in the Hell's Gate Game Reserve, and over the course of 4 years, from 2008 to 2012, we worked with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and were able to obtain bighorn sheep from 3 different source populations in Washington State. And over the course of those 4 years, we transplanted 114 bighorn sheep into the Hell's Gate Game Reserve. That population is currently, we had no mortalities during that whole process. A combination of helicopter captures and ground captures. And that population is currently over 200 individuals. And last year we were actually able to have our first ram harvest in the history of the Colorado Reservation. So that was a pretty big deal, bringing back a species historically. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here is any species that once occurred within the reservation boundaries, we're trying to bring those back and get those strong again. And so to answer your question about the natural predators for pronghorn, we do have cougar in the area. We have black bear in the area, and coyotes. We do have wolf packs on the reservation as well. They don't currently, their homelands don't currently include the areas that we're looking to bring the pronghorn into. They're actually more in the timbered habitat to the eastern and northern portions of the reservation.
Additional questions? Commissioner Lane, did you have others?
No,
Yeah. Commissioner McNash?
Thank you. So I guess there's, the ultimate goal, one of the primary goals is for subsistence. And do you have a target population that you're hoping for? I mean, what's going to turn that switch on?
Well, like I said, the start is, we're going to probably sit on it until we see good recruitment and, growth of the population. We're not going to bring them on and start a harvest right away. I would imagine, specifically with those initial areas we're going to reintroduce into, before we'd even think about a harvest, I'd say we're going to want 200 to 300 animals. And the thing is, I don't even know if we would begin harvest, because like I said, there's some other areas that we think is suitable as well for pronghorn. So it might be more of a scenario where we try to get our population up to a point where we can take and move some other animals into some other areas and get all these areas established before we start a hunt. A lot of that we haven't, gotten the finer points of yet, because we're just trying to get animals on the landscape. And, we wanted to start with, 50 to 100 individuals over the course of 1 to 2 years. But before we'd even consider harvest, there would have to be several hundred on the landscape. And in the beginning, I imagine it'll probably be a special permit draw kind of tag until we get numbers to a point where we can allow more of an open harvest for tribal members.
So it's more of a long-term goal for sure. There's not a lot of pressure for things to start.
No, I mean we've had a ton of support from the tribal membership in returning these kinds of populations back, and they were very patient with our bighorn. Like I said, essentially waited 6 years before they had the first harvest, of bighorn sheep, and that's been a success. And I don't think we'll get much pushback on that, because they've seen the success of being patient and making sure the population's healthy, and letting them expand into territory that they want to be in before we start putting hunting pressure on them.
Additional questions?
Does the tribe
I anticipate selling to non-tribal members, any permit in the future?
No, on the bounds of the Caldwell Reservation, non-tribal members are not allowed to hunt big game for any reason at all on the Caldwell Reservation. It's a tribal member hunting of big game only, and there would be no support from that from the membership or from tribal council. It's like I said, it's a subsistence culture, and big game animals are for tribal members and their families.
Additional questions? Just maybe a comment followed by a couple of questions. One, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come down here. You've done a lot of legwork. I really appreciate the presentation. In fact, Mike, if other states make similar requests, I point them to this as a good way to present it. Yeah. So, I mean, I was impressed, and I don't know when you took the pictures, but given the condition of our state this year, for a shot at that grass. You had mentioned, I think your formal request is for 50 pronghorn this year, and then future efforts, maybe we come back and talk, but we're just talking the 50 for this year. And then you had mentioned that you'd identified funding for the effort, and I assume that plays into helping fund the trap and transport up to Washington.
Yep.
And then you're gonna put satellite collars on every animal?
Yeah, we've actually already purchased them. They're Vectronic called a survey collar. They're cheaper than your classic GPS collar because you only get 2 locations a day. But the upside of that is these collars last for about 4 years, and you do get VHF as well. So we've had some success with some other species. We started deploying those on some wolf pack members as well because you get the length of that collar. You don't get the benefit of having locations every 2 or 3 hours, and so what you can do with the data is a little bit limited. But for what we wanted to do with pronghorn, know where they're at, where they're moving, what habitat they're using. We felt like these collars were a good fit, and so we've already purchased 50 of them. They're sitting in our office, just waiting.
Additional questions, Commissioner Johnston?
I have a question. Do you know what the state of Washington's position is on reintroduction of pronghorn in other areas of the state outside of tribal lands? Are they trying to do it?
In the meetings I've had with, formal meetings I've had and conversations I've had, they're supportive of the idea, and they've always been supportive of the tribes going through, because it sounds like they've had some difficulties themselves trying to move forward with this kind of a project. So they see the tribes doing this as a positive thing, and they've given us verbal support for it. I think they've had some legitimate questions that they have to have. They asked, they made a phone call and inquired about possibilities of animal damage to crop damage, and in the areas that we were planning on releasing. And we said there's always that potential that can occur, but the flip side to that is that's why we picked the area we did, because of all the land that we specifically manage ourselves and have the ability to manipulate the food source there to support pronghorn antelope. So there's generally been good support.
And one additional question. Yes, it's my understanding that you want to reintroduce the pronghorn antelope to the tribal lands for subsistence hunting by tribal members only. And Commissioner Valentine asked some questions that I had already regarding sale of tags and that. If we were to move forward with approving the transplant of 50 pronghorn from this state, would the tribe be in a position to, enter into the understanding as to what the purpose of the reintroduction is for, and that, so that we're all on the same page as to what the goal is, that the hunt won't be established until there's sufficient numbers. We're not going to sell tags commercially, things of that nature. I guess my point is that I'd like to have a comfort level if we move forward with this. The basis for the request is documented, and we all have an understanding as to what it is, what it's going to be.
Yep. Yeah, I don't see a problem in that. We can draft up something, that kind of outlines, our intentions with the population.
Additional questions? Commissioner Wallace?
I've only got one additional question, Chairman. Where do we anticipate taking, should we agree to this, taking the animal from, which unit?
Mike Cox. Well, there's a lot of issues out there on the landscape right now that we've always tried to keep our options open. We've been talking for several years now of trying to reduce some densities in Humboldt County. We haven't had the ground conditions. We haven't had the ability to have the antelope where we want them optimally to capture, to minimize injuries and maximize the efficiency of it. And our eastern regions has been involved quite a bit with the discussions with the Colville tribe, and we probably have opportunities in some of the past areas that we've captured pronghorn, north of Interstate 80, in the North Battle Mountain, Duffy Hills area. So we're kind of keeping that option open depending on what happens this summer, what's going to happen this early winter, and then come together and make a decision to approve where would be the best place, where it'd be efficient. I mean, they all have plenty of animals. All those herds have plenty of animals. It's just a matter of the conditions that are making it efficient, safe for the animals, safe for us.
And Mike, that, going along that same thought line, we wouldn't see a reduction in that tag out allotment to Nevada residents because of that in those areas.
We might for a year, yeah.
Nothing significant in your opinion?
No, I mean, we've got doe hunts in probably all the herds that we would consider. And we've had discussions for many years of, well, can you move them first? And if you can't move them, then we'll accept the doe hunt. But it would probably
take them all from one area, or can you take them from multiple areas from the state? In other words, 10 here, 10 here.
It's really best to go to one spot. We don't want those antelope in the trailer any longer than we want. They're Olympic athletes, and they need to be hitting the ground ASAP. So yeah, we want to try to get them and that's where we definitely want to consider an area that provides us to be really efficient. And we've had some highly efficient captures in the past where we've captured 120 in 4 hours, and so. That's what we like to see. And then getting back to Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, my counterpart, Rich Harris, I've had several discussions with him, and I can tell you they're very impressed with the Colville Tribe program, and they're very supportive of the reintroduction efforts there.
One other question, Mike. If we find the unit, we can do the efficient capture, we can get the numbers. Is there some place in Nevada you'd like to move antelope to?
We've had our biologists last few years. I press them. Hey, what do you think? And they say, well, I think we have enough, or I think they're doing okay, or they're in balance with the local situation, whether it's limitations on water or just forage itself with the drought. We've had a lot of depredation issues where I think some of the biologists 5-10 years ago were interested in augmenting, and then we started seeing more and more use on agricultural lands, and they're just not interested in exacerbating that. We had a release site identified for the southern region Delamar Valley, and we haven't acted on it yet. We were looking to put some pronghorn into eastern parts of Area 4. They kind of did it on their own, and that population between 043 and 046 is doing quite well. We were waiting on the BLM to do some of their neutral work, and the pronghorn got impatient and they did it themselves. So, but right now, I don't think we really have any opportunities that we feel that we need to do.
Just as a follow-up, Mike, I know it's in the table back here, but remind me where we are just generally on statewide population. It seems to me we're almost pushing record highs. Am I
28.
Or way over the 10-year average?
Yeah, we've been at our record high for the last 3-4 years, kind of plus or minus 500, 1,000. So we're pretty excited about that as we are with a few other species. Yes.
Additional comments, Commissioner Wallace?
Just one comment real quick to address Commissioner Johnston's concern. Right in their resolution here, it says that the future management goals would include an added opportunity for assistance by the tribe membership. It's right in the resolution.
Additional questions or discussion at this point? Commissioner Bliss?
First of all, I appreciate the presentation. I really appreciate the labor that you guys have done in the preparation for these animals to show up. It's instead of showing up and hurrying around and trying to get things done, the legwork's done. It seems to be all put together properly and right. The one question I do have is that you're going to gather a lot of data with your GPS collars and track this animals. Would you be willing to share that back with Mike and the department, and then keep us up to date on how well that population is doing in future years?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, one of the reasons why we felt like that was important to maybe over-collar these animals is because we felt like there wasn't enough learned by Yakima's experience. And if we're going to have success in bringing the species back, not only on the reservation, but for them to return in the state, I think the more we can learn about, how to do it better, how to make it more successful, the better off we'll be. And so, yeah, one of the things we want to learn from this, we want to have success, and for sure we'll share the data to whatever need.
Additional questions? I have one more, and maybe I shouldn't go here, but I think one of the issues that the Yakima tribe had experienced was the horse populations and some serious use on their rangeland. Do you guys have a similar issue there, or by the pictures it doesn't look like it, but?
Yeah, they do have some pretty significant horse populations within their reservation boundaries that I know they're trying to deal with. I'm not sure to what end, but we actually do have horse population as well, way smaller than what the Yakimas have. And we've actually made some recent removals. We removed about 450 horses this winter, trying to reduce that overall number. I think the last time we had counted, we were at 1,400 to 1,600 horses, and so about 500 of those. And those aren't within the area that we're planning on doing the pronghorn. They're in an area that's kind of to the east, and then even further to the east is the two primary areas that we have horses. But I don't foresee there being an issue like that.
Additional questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion before I take it out for cab and public comment? Okay. County Advisory Boards, comments?
Vern Winter, Elko County Cab. We did take this issue up. One of our cab members was raised in that area. We did vote to oppose it on the concerns he had was land, the habitat, wolves and the management of them is what the concerns our cab had. That's why we voted to not approve.
Mr. Shea, come on up.
Sean J. Washington County. We approved this straight across. We thought this was a great idea. The only thing that comes to my mind is looking at our pronghorn numbers. I don't know why we don't give them more. I mean, start them off on a good thing and let's get them going.
Additional county advisory boards? Public comment, Reno? Seeing none, public comment in Las Vegas?
Thank you, Chairman. No comment in Vegas.
How about Elko?
No comment, Chairman.
With that, we'll bring it back to the commission. Further discussion, questions? Personally, I think it's a great opportunity at a great time for us. I'm willing to share the wealth. I think I can't express enough how much I appreciate the legwork that's gone into this, the presentation, and also the follow-up. It's pretty unique when you have a situation where you're going to release 50 animals and have satellite collars on every single one, even if it does only transmit twice a day. It's impressive. So that's where I am personally. Mr. Young.
Mr. Chairman, Mike, I think there was some discussion about coming back and getting another 50 next year or a couple of years down the road. And, you know, Sean brought up the point of considering the drought conditions we're undergoing, could you guys use 100 right off the bat, or would it make sense? We don't have the expense of capturing and in a couple of years down the line if our populations would support that.
You know, we discussed it. Maybe the Yakima experience gave us a little hesitation to start smaller next time. I mean, we certainly have had our staff and our net gun capture contractors are very versed in conducting the capture, and I think we can be very efficient. But we decided we'd start small, and so I guess it's kind of up to you. If you know, I know, for example, when we've came multiple times to ask for the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources to get permission to get bighorn, we first started with X, and then it went to just make it happen and give them as many as they wanted. So we certainly could come back and see how things are going the first year and allow us to help them with additional augmentations other than having to wait for their population to build and then use that as source stock.
Additional questions? Commissioner Johnson.
Two questions, and Mike maybe can't answer this. If we were to approve this, is it going to then come back to the commission when we identify the area in which we want to move the animals from? Or is that something that's just occurs at some point in the future without further input from the public and the commission?
You know, through NAC, it's the language identifies the need to approve animals being translocated outside the state. It doesn't speak to the source population. But again, we really want to look at all of our options and get all of our regional folks to discuss things as they have so far, and then make the best decision. But I'd hate to tie our hands today with conditions that could change tomorrow.
Have you identified the benefit to the state of Nevada for this?
Well, I can tell you, you have to look at the whole card. When you see the number of bighorn sheep and elk and pronghorn ourselves that we've received from other jurisdictions, whether it's states or provinces, and we haven't asked for really anything in return. I mean, me personally, and I can vouch for probably most of our biologists, if not all of them, I'm very proud to see other entities and other jurisdictions throughout North America to be able to restore animals as we have. And we wouldn't have those opportunities ourselves if others haven't opened their doors to us. And again, I really feel as good as I have with any out-of-state introduction with the Colville tribe. I really feel that they've got a great chunk of habitat. It's huge, it's 1.4 million. I think they've done a really good job of managing it, and I think they're not going to rush into over-harvest efforts at all. So I really feel positive that it's a good thing for them, and we've got surplus. So no, we're not going to have sportsmen from Nevada vying for tags up there. I don't think that's ever been the intent or the basis for sharing animals before.
Understood, and I appreciate that, and answered my question. It's an intangible benefit and long-term benefit, and I just wanted to have that stated from the department.
Sometimes you got to beat it out of me.
I have additional questions or discussion at this point? If not, I would entertain a motion, and if we want to put a contingency on the department coming back and offering us some information on where they're going to get the animals from, I'm fine with that, but I would like to see something pretty solid so that the tribe could start planning and making those efforts going forward today, one way or the other. So with that, anyone willing to make a motion? Commissioner Lane.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that the commission accept the request from the Colville Confederated Tribes in Washington. And my suggestion would be, instead of saying for up to 50 pronghorn antelope during the winter of 2015 to 2016, that we make that up to 100 pronghorn antelope during the winter of 2015 to 2016. And that we leave it up to the staff to determine where they'll come from.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion. I guess my question to the tribe would be, can you guys accommodate up to 100? Is that something you would want or entertain? I know the motion's been kind of 50, but
Yeah, I think we
have to take it.
I think we could. I do know that when we had some discussions about the 100 or 50, I know one thing that we did consider was, like I said, maybe taking a smaller chunk, because not knowing if how well they're going to like where, we ran a model and we think they're going to love this habitat, but if they end up, going to some other place, it might be, better for us to be able to reintroduce more to the area they're going to be in, or that they're spending time. That doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but it was just something we considered. The other thing is we thought, well, maybe, that population's doing great off the 50 we started with. Maybe we want to put the 50 in another area we've identified. I think we could accommodate the 100. I don't think we'd turn it away. It would just be a little bit more legwork on trying to get trailers. We have a ton of staff that are going to be just really excited to be involved in this project. And to come down and move the animals back. So I think we could do it. It's just a matter of planning a little bit, So whatever works out best for everyone, I think we'll be able to, move forward that direction.
Mr. Chairman, I did that simply to give latitude. I mean, we're assuming it's going to be up to 50. I mean, they can take 50, obviously, they don't have, it's up to 100. So I'm just trying to provide some latitude there, and given everything that's going on in the state right now in terms of the drought.
Mr. Bliss.
I agree with Commissioner Lane. It doesn't say that the way the motion, how I understand it, doesn't say they have to take 100. It's up to if they have enough to take 60, while they're here, an extra 10, if it fits in the trailer to go up there, we'll be buying that. And that's why I support the motion.
Okay. Additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm really kind of torn on this one a little bit. I've heard Mr. Cox's concern about going above 50 because of experiences with prior reintroduction of the Yakima area. Now we're doubling the number without cab input, and we're not going to identify the area. I'd really like to have that final input come back, but I understand the planning process. I'd also like to see some sort of a memorandum of understanding if we're going to do this with the Colville tribe. Commissioner Wallace pointed out their resolution, but I'd like to see some sort of MOU with the tribe and the department that, look, we're giving you the 50 and here's our understanding what's going to happen. There won't be any harvest and kill. There's a sustainable population. We're not going to be selling the tags commercially because of, the stated purposes for the tribal subsistence hunting, and I think reintroduction's a good idea. I'd just like to have a little more formality to this. We're going to start handing over animals based upon understanding, and I really appreciate the legwork. It's, I do. I have a concern of, things change within tribal councils, within commissions like this one, or any other body like that. That's my thoughts. So I'm a bit torn at this point in time with the motion that's been presented.
Understood. Additional commission discussion, comment?
Question, Mike, when we receive animals, do we have to provide exactly what Brad Johnson said? As far as a memorandum or make commitments as to how we use the animals? Have we had to do that in the past?
We have not.
We have not. That's what I thought.
Additional discussion? If not, so just so everyone's clear, the motion is to approve up to 100 animals with staff approval on source population, essentially. Commissioner Lane, did I capture your motion
That's correct.
accurately? Okay, if there's no other discussions, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously.